when it decides to do it.
Uh,
Hello. Welcome to the Witty Writers Show. I am Beth Worsdell, author, and this is your big book idea show with the fantastic Mark Gottlieb from Trident Media Group. Hello, Mark.
hey, good to be back. Thank you for having me again.
Well, I have to say there's been a bit of a big demand for you, Mark, because I received so many messages and comments after our last show. People were just blown away by the wealth of knowledge that you have and your honesty about the big book business. They were begging me to get you back on.
This time we have a change of scenery too. I'm in my office today. Let's see what you can see from here.
I love it.
And maybe you can see some of the offices out this way.
That is so cool. That's the first time I've ever sort of had a bird's eye view of where you work, Mark. And I have to say, I love your bookshelf at the back of you because those books look fantastic.
Let's see if I can.
I know it always works the opposite to the way you think it's going to work.
Yeah.
That is so cool. My gosh, we've got people hopping up already. So please pop up your hellos, everybody. Say hello to myself and Mark. We got Marcy. She says, hi, Beth and Mark. She's joined us. And we've also got Peggy as well. I can see lots of other people popping up as well. So please say hello. Now, today we are talking about people's big book ideas. And I think a lot of people, especially if they're starting out in the industry and they're thinking about writing a book, don't have any idea how big the book business is and how competitive it is, especially for certain genres as well. Now, as a writer myself, when I started writing my first book, I was completely blown away, Mark, by the book world because I'm a born researcher. I research everything. So when I started investigating and thinking, okay, I think my book's a science fiction book, I better start looking into this. When I looked at how many books are out there in science fiction and fantasy and what the competition was like.
Oh, yeah. I mean, not just among the publishers. You have so many different kinds of publishers. Big five publishers, larger independent publishers, small little indie presses, and then even everything people have been doing in the self-publishing space too. You know, it all makes for such a glut of material out there that you really have to stand out in the midst of all that. And so there is a lot of stuff, but that everyone has to get their start somewhere. So people did it, you know, one way or the other. You had James on your show. He was talking about how he went from the newspaper world to just writing for his blog for pleasure, and then he just connected with Twitter somehow.
Do you know what? I love talking to James because, you know, it's lovely when you get to talk to somebody who is a success story. And he really did stumble on his niche quite by accident. I mean, he was doing what he loved, but it turned out to be a fantastic untapped niche. You know, who knew that books, you know, by a funny dad would well, you did because you signed him up. A smart man.
You know, but the way that happened was someone in the other room was laughing. They were reading Newsweek or BuzzFeed, you know, the blog for Newsweek. And I said, what's so funny? I ran into the next room and they said, you know, this dad and his daughters, they're a riot. They're so funny. And I said, he's got to do a book. And at the time, you know, a book which was really popular, and pardon my French, but it's the title of the book. It was called Shit My Dad Says. It was just a collection of these funny, you know, kind of old dad humor type stuff. And it was a book that just like went totally viral. And so I thought, when I approached James, I thought, okay, James, that's the book you're going to write. And instead, you know, he comes to me and he says, well, no, the book I'm going to instead write is this zombie parenting survival guide, you know,
I
only
love
on the inside. And I was like, really? He said, yes. And it worked out, you know, it did pretty well. And more books with him since then.
It's fantastic. And you know, I was giggling as I was reading out his titles because I love every single title of every single book he's done. They're just absolutely brilliant. But also his covers are just so engaging as well. So, you know, he ticks all the boxes, doesn't he? He's got something that really intrigues people, you know, fantastic books, but also, you know, bright, vibrant covers, fantastic titles. That's what us authors need to be considering when we think, okay, I really want to have this published. But who knew that, you know, that would be such a big boom in the market for an untapped niche. And there are books out there that have literally set the precedents, haven't they, for revigorating a genre and categories, such as, you know, Harry Potter. I mean, that exploded. You know, all of a sudden, once Harry Potter started becoming so popular, the market was flooded with, you know, all these wizard books and witches books, and shows were being shown on the TV again that had been done years previous. You can't always really predict when these things are going to happen, can you?
Yeah, a lot of people didn't even know, for instance, middle grade or young adult were book genres. They just thought, oh, you know, children's books, they're a thing that's written for kids. They gave no consideration to the fact that there are different age reading groups, you know, or age reading levels within kids' books. And so Harry Potter really made, you know, middle grade or middle school age kids, that reading group, stand out.
Yeah, absolutely. And to be honest with you, I'm a self-confessed Harry Potter fan. I loved reading those books to all my children, and I became so addicted that when we were on vacation in France, I was absolutely heartbroken because I couldn't get the final book before I went on vacation. So my wonderful husband went searching around the villages in France and managed to pick me up the copy. I was like, yes. I was so excited.
I remember the original hardcover editions that I think it was Scholastic had published them. They were beautiful, these jacketed books with original artwork. You know, you don't see that as much as often anymore. And I remember watching on the news too, like, you know, people camping outside of Barnes & Noble bookstores with tents, lining up to get the next copy of Harry Potter. The only thing I could think of it reminded me of was, like, you know, when they would make another Star Wars movie, people would camp out, or they would dress up in costumes.
Yeah, and you just can't predict a fan following like that. I mean, the Harry Potter fandom is just global and huge. It's amazing. And we saw the same thing happening with Twilight as well, with the Twilight series. You know, all of a sudden that completely re-energized the, you know, the paranormal genre. And it was fantastic because I think, you know, when these things happen, they give hope to authors who love that type of thing and have started writing, and they're so doubtful because they don't know whether that genre is popular or not.
It can happen anytime, anywhere, you know, totally out of left field. And yeah, just a lot of it is right place, right time, that kind of thing.
Yeah. And a good story that encourages, you know, kids and their parents to read, which is nice.
Sure, we do that too.
We've got some more people that have popped on. They're saying hello. We've got Olivia. She says, hello, hope you're all having a great day. I am. Are you, Mark?
Yeah, thank you, Olivia. That's nice of you to say.
I think we're both having a good day, especially now we're here chatting to everybody who's popping on. Terza says, I'm here. Lots of love from across the Atlantic. She's in Germany.
Hello, welcome back.
The Witty Writer Show is getting everywhere, I have to say. We've also got Scott, who's joined us. He says, hello, glad to be back with you both. Thank you very much, Scott. We've got Luna, says hi both. We've also got Heather. She says hi. Hi to you both from Gemma and I. Her daughter Gemma is an active reader. She's a very smart little girl, I have to say. And we've also got Carrie as well, who's a fellow author. James says, hello, everyone. I'm running late. Don't worry, James. You're all good. You're all good. Peter's just joined us. He says, hello, hi, everyone. And we've also got Wendy. So we've got a good old crowd with us today. If any of you have any questions you'd like to ask about today's show, your big book idea, please put them in the comments and I will try to put as many up as I can, and obviously you can get the right information straight from the horse's mouth, as it were. And we will go from there. I want to talk to you about categories, Mark, because it's such a super important thing that an author has to consider. And as I said, it was one of the first things that I looked at. Is the book I'm writing going to fit in this category that I'm thinking of? And what is my competition? Now, for you, as a literary agent, your finger is on the pulse constantly, looking at how the categories are behaving, what's trending, what has worked in the past, what is not working now. At this moment in time, what do you think are the most popular categories at the moment?
Well, there are different categories between fiction, nonfiction, graphic novels, and even children's books. I always find the best thing a writer can do is and it simplifies the process a lot too, is rather than getting into the weeds of, for instance, is my book a police procedural, or is it some kind of suspense, or is it, some other domestic noir, some other kind of subgenre of, mystery crime thrillers. I find it's just always easier just to refer to your work as, okay, I wrote a thriller,
Yeah.
and leave it at that, because it keeps you open to other possibilities. Like right now, for instance, domestic noir, or domestic suspense, basically, even in the wake of Gone Girl, it still has good momentum to it. There's still a lot of books coming out, sort of in that school, in that tradition. The same thing like with Stephanie Meyer's, and she brought vampires back into the forefront again. There were a lot of books in the wake of all that. But I think you're always going to be in a better position if you just say, oh, I wrote a science fiction, or I wrote a thriller, than to specify it. Because if the market were to suddenly, pivot tomorrow, and you've been referring to your book as something which, the crest of the wave is gone, then it would have made for bad timing. So I always just like to simplify it.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, I work with a number of clients who I help with coaching them in the right direction. And the most common thing that I found is with authors, it's they don't realize who their target market is. And that is huge. Because the one thing I've noticed with a lot of stories is that they look like they should be in male fiction, but actually their readership is actually going to be mainly women. So they're sort of trying to push to the wrong market. And that's a really, really big thing and big mistake to have. It is not knowing who your target market is, because obviously when I'm pitching a story to you and to other agents, I need to know who my book is for, because I've got to sell that story to you first before you can then go and sell it to a publisher, and then the publisher is going to sell it to readers. So I think it's very important, isn't it, to actually do your research and find out who is my story for, who is this going to appeal to, who's going to want to read it, and then hopefully love it and recommend it to others.
Yes, I mean, you do need to be, in touch with who your potential audience is. Like you say, if you've written women's fiction, then, I mean, obviously there is a category for, they used to call it chick lit, which was kind of a terrible phrase. I mean, if they called it like, bro lit or like guy lit, I probably wouldn't appreciate it. So now the correct term is women's fiction. And so, yeah, to have like the awareness about your own book is good, and to know what the potential or intended audience is. But yeah, I think just using those umbrella terms, within each of those is generally good, rather than, because there are other subgenres. For instance, within romance, there's rom-com, there's erotica, there's contemporary romance, there's new adult. And, the book may be one of those things, but I think an author is always in a stronger position to sort of let the publisher decide what they think, rather than potentially cutting off any readers or potential readers.
Yeah, I think that's a very, very good tip. I mean, at the end of the day, you and the publishers know far more about the business than we do. And also you have the advantage of gaining knowledge as to, changes in the market months in advance before we even know about it. So you're right, to just give an umbrella categorization is probably the best thing any of us can do. That's very, very good advice. We've got more people are saying hello, and I will try and get them on quickly. Let's have a look. Okay, we've got Peter says hello to everyone. We've got Wendy who's joined us as well. We've also got Sharon. She says hi from Charlotte. And Suzanne, who's another author, she says hello, Beth and Mark. Scott says good advice, or great advice, should I say. And Olivia has a question for us, Mark. When an author pitches you, what makes their book really stand out, assuming that it is good and a well-written story? Ooh, that's a good one.
I mean, really starting with the query letter, because most agents are having, authors go through their website, agreeing to terms and conditions, and then submitting a query letter, which is effectively just a cover letter for you and your book. It introduces us to both the story and who the writer is. And we may have spoken about this on the last show, but I think a good query letter is fits all on one page, and it's basically upfront in 1 to 2 sentences, a quick pitch or hook, what the book is about, a couple of comparative titles, like best-selling titles that you feel are similar in some way to your book, ideally published within the last 5 years, and then a couple quick body paragraphs about the book, and last paragraph is like the author bio of writing experience, writing credentials. I think that all of that presents information in a good way, and if that letter is really well written, that is your storefront right there. That is, if someone makes a beautiful storefront, you want to walk in and look at everything else in the store. So that's what will get people requesting your manuscript.
I wanted to ask another question that adds on to that. Now, do you find that some query letters really showcase the writer's personality, and are those more attractive to you when you can actually get a sense of the personality of the writer themselves, or does that not matter how formal or friendly it is?
I've seen a lot of personalized query letters, some of them written in the voices of characters and about their book, which I don't always recommend, but I think whatever comes across most naturally and really does work best. So I've seen some query letters which are sort of written more thematically about like the major themes of the book and the issues or the things the book tries to address or tackle, whatever. And then in other instances I've seen where it's a more plot-driven query letter. It's like, well, this happens and then that happens and it's going to lead to that, but we don't know how it will end, so, and then I've seen a combination of the two, but it really is just your opportunity to showcase your best writing, and then that to get people to request the manuscript from there. I don't know what else to say about the query letter, but definitely honing in on the right comps, and I think just getting right to it, skipping all the, I wrote to you because I saw you published X, Y, or Z book, or I read this or that about your interview online. Just get right into, I'm sending you my book, just see if you're interested.
Yeah, that's very, very good advice. And do your research, everybody, because agents' wish lists can change. If they've had an influx of one type of story, they might be looking for something else. So make sure you stay active in looking what agents are looking for at that time, because that can make a massive difference as well, can't it, Mark?
I think the best, along those lines, you're right. A lot of writers look to this. There's this website called Manuscript Wish List, which the problem with that is not everyone keeps it updated. And you're right, a lot of people get inundated, and then what happens is that information just becomes incredibly cryptic. Like, I don't even know what it says right now on my manuscript wish list page, the best thing you can go by is look at the deals the agent and the agency has done or the books they've published. Then you know what's working well for them and what they're probably looking for. You know, you make your own kind of inference that way.
Yeah. And, you know, like yourself, I mean, you're active on Twitter. So if you're specifically looking for something or needing something because a publisher might have mentioned that they're looking for a particular thing, you know, you might well tweet about it or do a blog post, or, you know, you might add it to your website. So, you know, there are other ways of finding out what agents are looking for as well, isn't there? Especially if they are active on social media or have a blog or a current website that's updated. So there's lots of places you can check just to cover your own back, and it doesn't take long. You know, just to have a look at one particular agent, you know, an hour, and you can thoroughly go through and just have a look at, you know, what's happening and what they're looking for. Terza has got a question for us. Let's pop that up.
Oh, and we might I think we missed one there. Author Carrie Weston, 5:16 p.m. It says.
Oh, there we go. Let's have a look.
What's the best way to pitch?
There we go. Yeah, what's the best way to pitch? Oh, a collaborated author and illustrator picture book. That's a very good question, because we have got quite a few authors that do that. So very good question. What do you think, Mark?
So I've sold a couple of these, but I don't really do children's picture books day in, day out. It's just I've done them in instances for clients who also happen to write children's picture books, or things just publishers approached us. But basically, publishers tend to prefer a writer going in without an illustrator, just because more often than not, the publisher has a very specific brand aesthetic in mind in terms of how they want their books to look, and they have a stable of artists they like to work with. And so sometimes you can suggest an artist, or at least in the text, parenthetically refer to how you want the art to look. In instances where you go in with an illustrator, I think the best thing you can do is say to the publisher you're not necessarily married to the illustrator, and with the illustrator have an understanding, at least in writing by email, if not a collaboration agreement, that okay, if we get to an instance where the publisher says, hey, we love the writer but not the illustrator, you know, there needs to be some kind of kill fee or something built in for the illustrator so that the project can be severed and then go onward from there. But in instances where you do go in with an illustrator, you have to check, you know, look at the types of book the publisher is publishing, see if the artwork and its sensibilities are, you know, in keeping with what the publisher publishes.
Yeah, and also, I mean, it could work the other way as well. I mean, they might love the illustrations but not the writing. You just never know. You just never know, dear. I do apologise, Carrie. You slipped in there without me seeing. Thank goodness Mark's on the ball. Look, let's have a look. Okay, so Terza's question is, yes, I write romance with some spiritual aspects woven into it, but it's not paranormal or fantasy, but contemporary. It has been layers. So if you can just get entertained or decide to dive a bit deeper, I am sure a spiritual goddess coach. I am also a spiritual goddess coach, so I love to mix the two. But to reach the right market is not always easy, because a lot of people in the spiritual community are not into steamy romance, and I am not all that good with marketing, but I'm learning and it's slowly picking up more. It can be a tough thing, can't it, Mark, if you're so close to possibly two different book markets? My instinct is to go with the most popular one and the one that is closest related to, and go with that, because I think sometimes people can spread themselves too thin when they're marketing their books. I think once you establish yourself in one market and gain success, reviews, and, you know, some backup sales, then maybe people can then branch into slightly other markets that are closely related. But what do you think?
I get that sense too. I agree with you there. So just want to make sure when when we're talking about spiritual, is that Christian or spiritual like mindfulness? I wasn't sure. So I was going to say, if it is spirituality in terms of religion and Christianity, there are indeed, publishers of like Christian romance, and they tend to be cleaner kind of romance. But they're really few and far between, but they're strong within their markets. If it's something else, then maybe it's a genre we've never heard of or just conceived of, and you can always try and road test something like that. But I see, it says mindfulness and such.
Yes.
Yeah, I've never, but you could be surprised. I mean, I've seen stuff on. You see the funniest things online on Amazon and the self-published space. Some of these books that were climbing into the top 100, dinosaur erotica, or there was amputee stuff too. So you can really be surprised. And sometimes when publishers are closed off to it, if it's something you road test, in the self-publishing space, and it does really well, you might unwittingly create some kind of new genre or inspire a publisher to pick up your next book. So, you never know. You could be surprised.
Yeah, I agree with you. Because I know that Amazon have been known to create new categories and genres specifically because a book has come onto the scene that's done so well, but it hasn't fitted into any particular type of pigeonhole. So there is room to adapt, isn't there, on every level? I think from agents look, the way that agents look at a genre, I think, okay, this needs its own, to publishers, to actually the platforms that sell the books. They are willing to change if a new genre or niche has been found.
Yeah, for instance, I didn't think that mafia romance could ever be a thing, but right now it's really big in the self-publishing space, and a lot of foreign publishers are picking up on those books and wanting to translate them. I don't know publishers are kind of slow to pick up on this stuff, but you see a ton of that, and you wouldn't necessarily expect it. Oftentimes it's just you write a book and you tap into an audience that was already there, had an appetite for this kind of book, but was really being underserved.
Yeah, and military romance is getting big as well, I've noticed, and Terza also writes about that. She's got very hot, saucy Navy SEALs and stuff. I noticed the other day. They're fantastic. Let's have a look at some more comments. Let's have a look. I think Terza's in shock. She went, "Oh my God, dinorotics." I think Terza's just come out with a new word. I love that. James is saying, his new genre is apocalyptic erotica.
Okay.
That actually has quite a nice ring to it, I have to say. Watch out, Amazon. That's all I'm going to add to that. Let's have a look. Terza says, yes, the genre thing is a problem for her too, where to place her books. But I think you're right. I think with for example, with Terza's books, because they cover so many different aspects, romance is definitely the umbrella to go over with a lot of her books, but also the spirituality, I think, because I think there is a decline, isn't there, in more religious and Christian type books. I think people want to be more reserved. I do know that I've had friends who have written Christian fiction, and because it's been very informal and loose, they've been criticized for that because it hasn't got enough of the Christianity and enough Bible in it.
Yes.
So it's it can be a bit of a minefield, but I think, as you said, if you have it more in umbrella categories and try and see what works underneath that, it's all trial and error. Yeah. It really, really is. Let's have a look. Donna's joined us. She says, hi, both. Welcome, my darling. And Terza says, yes, like mature women and younger men, but barely not legal. I see what you're saying. Dominic says, I am an audiobook narrator. Oftentimes when I reach out to authors, they decide against an audiobook because they don't know if it's the right time to produce one. When would you say is a good time for any author to produce an audiobook? That's a tricky one. Oh my gosh.
I would say any time is a good time, but the best time is right in line with when the book is coming out, because most audiobook publishers or most audio publications, a lot of these audio publishers don't have huge marketing departments the way a publisher might. So they rely on a lot of the efforts of the publishing house to correctly, market and promote the book. So to time the two publications so they're right at the same time. Otherwise, sometimes when the audio publication comes after the print or ebook publication, it's kind of like a lost sales opportunity for the audio edition. It's not to say that it can't happen or some things don't come along and break the rules, but ideally you want to have simultaneous publication in audio with the other editions.
Yeah, because especially at the moment, because audiobooks are becoming so popular, aren't they? They really are. I mean, I was looking on Amazon today, and there are a lot of audiobooks that are in the top sellers list.
Oh yeah.
So popular. So audiobooks, I think, are fantastic. They really are absolutely brilliant. And that's very, very good advice, actually, because as I said, it gives people the choice. It really does. Terza says reverse harem, reverse age gap, but nothing. But with a meaningful eye-to-eye relationship and a good storyline. Most cougar or MILF. She's given all these terminologies. I can feel myself blushing, Terza, as I'm actually saying all this. Are barely veiled erotica and often badly written. It's amazing, isn't it? Do you know what? I'm sure you've heard about this book series that's just come on the scene, and it's been out for many years apparently, and I was a bit surprised. But it's Ice Blue Barbarians or Blue Ice Barbarians, something Blue Barbarians, and it's all over TikTok. I mean, it is all over TikTok, and it's by an author called Ruby Dixon. And I think it was just pure chance that a book blogger or bookstagrammer happened to read it, loved it, started sharing it, and it's literally just gone viral all over TikTok. The reviews are very mixed. Some people are like, I don't really know what I'm reading. And others are like, I love this and I'm on book 7,
Some of this, you never know with TikTok. There was a New York Times article recently about these TikTokers crying about how much they love a book. And a lot of people at first, because this strange phenomenon was happening where a lot of backlist previously published titles, which normally in publishing, when a book has already published and it has gone on to become a backlist title, it might have a long tail of sales, but it's usually very thin and maybe for a long period of time, like a classic novel would. But you don't really expect it to hit the New York Times list unless some kind of major event happens. Like, when Trump was elected, everyone was reading, 1984 again. It hit the New York Times list. That kind of didn't surprise people. But there were all these old books hitting the New York Times list. No one could figure it out. It was these TikTokers going online, holding a book and crying about it and saying, I love this book. It made me cry. You got to read this book. And then a lot of people got upset when they found out that in the wake of a couple of these TikTokers doing that, publishers and authors started paying TikTokers to promote their book that way. It was like pay to play, like in the radio world. And so now it's how a lot of these social media influencers, they make a lot of money because, someone wants to advertise that way or be the celebrity holding a product.
I've got to say, to me, it might be just my personality, but I don't like stuff like that. To me, it feels dishonest. If I'm going to get reviews, I want them all organic and I want them honest, because then I know for a fact that my readers, when they go on and have a look at my reviews, they are genuine, and I can, hand on heart, I'm like, yes, have a look. They're all organic. And to me, that makes me feel good because I got it on an honest way. Do you know what I mean?
it's one of the problems of the internet. It's like so much of it is democratized, and yet, in empowering people, you know, there are some intelligent people on the internet and not so intelligent people, and then people who play by the rules and people who break the rules. And before the internet, you couldn't have people get people reviewing books like this. You just had to look at trade reviews. You had to look at what honest reviewing sites, like the New York Times or whatever book review, had to say about a book.
Yeah. Yeah.
And hope or trust that they were mostly, honest reviews. Now, anyone, can go and write a review.
I know it's one of the things that I get a lot of across all my social media is I'm constantly getting messages from people saying, oh, I can do this for you, I can do that for you, and it'll be this cost and blah, blah. And I'm like, no, thank you, but no. And I'm normally really polite, and I, because I get it all the time, thank you, but no, and the one thing I normally do is just quote, Amazon doesn't allow it. And that's all I just put sometimes. Amazon does not allow it, because the last thing I want is to gain a load of reviews and then have them taken away again.
Oh yeah, I mean there were even these, like, some of them were, believe it or not, #1 New York Times bestselling authors who were working with a company that helped them basically buy boxes of their own books, store them in their basement, and report them as actual book sales. And meanwhile, these are books like sitting in a warehouse somewhere. And the New York Times list found out about it and threatened to, bar the author from the New York Times list. I think it was I don't think it was Ken Follett. I think it was like James Patterson or someone like that. And, they had to play by the rules of the New York Times to get back on the list.
Yeah, it goes against the grain. I don't like anything that's dishonest. If somebody gives me too much change, I automatically say, you've given me too much. Before my brain's engaged, I'm like, no, you give me too much. That's just the way I am. And I like that because, as I said, it's better for your readers because they know what they're getting.
Keeps the carpet wheel spinning in the right direction.
It does. But everyone who's watching, just be a bit careful, because I recently said thank you, but no thank you to yet another person. And you would not believe the email I received. And I don't know how they managed to email me, but there was lots of F's and mothers involved. And I was like, really? I was so polite to you. I said, no, thank you. And this email
they're probably sick of getting turned down or something. They're in a bad mood.
It was awful. There was illustrations as well, but I will not get into that. Yes, I was a bit surprised. So that went delete and block straight away. But no, it's a bit of a minefield. And I think we all have to be very, very honest in the way we do things, because otherwise it just comes back to bite you on the butt, basically, doesn't it? It really does. So it pays to be honest and do your hard work. Let's have a look. Okay. Right. Oh, crikey, we got some more questions. So I'm going to put these on. Okay. Oh, Terza says she loves my hair. Thank you very much, Terza. It's all cut off. I'm embracing the grey. I'm turning the big 50 this year.
Oh, congratulations.
I've got to tell you, Mark, I've been in denial since I turned 40.
Yeah.
I haven't spoken about it for a whole 10 years, and I'm like, okay, I can't deny it no more. I'm going grey, and the big 50 is on its way. Never mind. Okay. Carrie says, how do you prefer to be approached, in person or by letter? Good question.
It depends on the setting. So, if I'm somewhere that, the idea is people are sitting down with you and pitching, which honestly, a lot of those things I'm not doing so many of them anymore because it's exhausting. I mean, you go to, for instance, they have this Writers Digest conference in New York, or they have the San Francisco Writers Conference in California, which are great events, but you're sitting in basically a ballroom full of other agents at other tables. You have like your name on a card and a line of people in front of your table, and a bell rings. It's like this Pavlovian response goes off, and you shake someone's hand, they sit down in front of you, they tell you about their book, and it's just speed dating. And by the end of it, you just need an aspirin, and so stuff like that I can't really do anymore. But in places like that, that's the expectation, that you're pitching in person. Otherwise, people expect to hear, yeah, probably by email through a query letter or submissions form, something like that. I wouldn't, I wouldn't, chase someone down and corner them,
Or go up to Mark while he's eating his meal with his lovely wife. No.
Yeah.
That sort of stuff is a no-no.
Well, people have tried that in the men's restroom, to tell me about their book at a conference, and it's that's not the place for that. It's so, but I think, yeah, most people want to hear by query letter, because at the end of the day, no matter how good the book sounds, you ultimately have to see the writing, and that'll first be showcased in the query letter, and even more so, obviously, in the manuscript.
Yeah, I would also imagine it's a lot easier when you do find something you're super interested in as well, because if it's in letter form, then you can literally, okay, this is brilliant, I want to act on this now. Whereas if you're at a writers' conference, you might get a pitch that you really, really love, but you have to hear another 10 people before you can even think about, contacting back the person that you really, really like the story of. So I would imagine it gives you a better level of control as well, as to, acting on something you find that really piques your interest. Very, very good question, Carrie. Well done. That one, I love that one. Okay, let's have a look. Okay, so Olivia says, thank you so much for answering my last question. I realised perhaps I should have phrased it differently. Not at all, darling, you're fine. I was lucky enough to get a full manuscript request from your colleague at Trident after these manuscripts are submitted in full. What makes you decide to acquire it? Ooh.
Probably just the quality of the writing. I mean, in the picture book space, publishers, not as much are they really looking for, author with a huge platform. It's more so just the quality of the writing. I think children's picture books, obviously they have to fit within 32 pages. They have a particular cadence to them, not really a rhyme, but like a cadence. And, the type of artwork that does well with that is usually more so painterly than like comic book style, stuff which is, looks like it's animated or comic book style is very fleeting. They like, artwork which can last through the generations, because like kids read the book and then the next generation, they want to share it with the next generation. That's one of the reasons why Dr. Seuss, I think, is so timeless.
Yeah.
But and the right word count. I mean, those tend to average around 900 words or so, usually less.
Yeah, it's all about our research, isn't it? Everything comes back to research. It really does. It's not a bad thing. Autumn says, TikTok pay to play. Why am I not surprised? There we go.
If people can make money at it, they will.
They will.
They'll figure out a way.
Yeah, of course they will. They always do. They always do. Let's have a look. Terza says, I had to put no paid reviews on my IG bio, which is Instagram, for those of you who are not sure. I got flooded with weird Asian people offering paid reviews, and they didn't even write proper English. It's a constant battle. It really, really is. Now after that last email, I don't even respond, which makes me feel really rude, but I don't want to get abused again for saying no. So, yes. Terza says, I got 1-star ratings for turning people down. Yeah, just don't engage, Terza. It's not worth it. It really, really isn't. Scott says, ultimately, integrity will result in longevity.
Mm-hmm.
I believe that, Mark. I really, really do, because, as you said, the people who do cheat the game end up getting caught out. It literally is a matter of time that people get caught out paying for reviews or doing whatever stuff they're trying to do to get ahead of the game. They always get found out, and they always end up worse off.
It's always this sort of, what do they say, this 10-to-1 ratio with how bad it can end up being. So,
yeah.
And I mean, with the with the other person said about the 1-star review, I feel like just letting Amazon know that sometimes they'll take illegitimate reviews down, if there's good cause for it. But a lot of these internet spammers and scammers, or whatever you want to call them, they're relentless. I mean, they get into your email inbox, they get all over your cell phone. I don't know. It makes you want to have like a separate cell phone and a separate email address just for when you have to do things like online shopping or wherever you need to, provide that kind of information. I feel like people are going to keep that information as dear as like a, social security number or something.
Yeah, I must admit that's the one thing I've always done is I've always had a completely separate email for my Amazon and Goodreads account, and I don't use it anywhere else because I literally don't want anything to do with any of this dodgy stuff that's going on. So mine is completely separate, but it's tough. It is tough, and interestingly, sometimes we do encounter situations where we get a bit of a backlash from other authors as well. And I've actually had that experience. And I don't know whether any of your authors have had this before, Mark. I actually had another sci-fi author who I've never met this guy at all. And he gave all 6 of my books, 3-star reviews under 2 different pen names.
Mm.
And I know for a fact he never read the second and third ones in the trilogies because they make complete no sense whatsoever. And he even copied and pasted the reviews so you could see that it was still him, just under a different pen name.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, I'm still waiting for Goodreads to get back to me. I'm like, what the heck?
They're an Amazon company. Amazon was pretty good about this, but early on there were a lot of problems where authors who were very competitive with each other, and I know creative people, they tend to just think with their feelings. And so if someone's just jealous of another writer's good writing, or their feelings hurt in some way, they want to go after them. And so some of these people were relentless, and Amazon caught on to it. And then I think they didn't let you leave a review unless it was a verified purchase, or they usually said next to the review whether or not it was a verified purchase. But if that guy really went through all the trouble of buying a book just so he could write a negative review, I mean,
I know he did all of them in my trilogy. And what makes it worse, I'm thinking, who is this guy? Because even if I disliked another author's book, I would never slate them. To me, that I just couldn't do that to another person, because how much hard work goes into doing the books. So I checked on his profile just to see who this guy was, and he'd conveniently given all of his books 5-star reviews on both pen names, and I thought, well, I'm not even going to bother.
This is really, again, why I'm not really for the full democratization of the internet, because I think there's a difference sometimes between like democracy and the mob control, and some people get carried away and don't know what to do with all this freedom, and anyone with a keyboard in the basement somewhere can do whatever they want.
And be very brave behind a keyboard and a screen. That's the thing that gets me, is they're very brave behind the screen, but hey ho, at the end of the day, I'm leaving them in my dust. There we go.
Yeah.
Okay, let's have a look. So we've got Terza says she's a big 5-0 in November. I think we might have to have an online party because she's in Germany, so we might have to do it online. She says, crone goddess power. Isn't crone supposed to be a bad term for a witch? I'm confused. Terza, let me know. I don't know. She says you have more peace and quiet to look into the book when you can do it in your own time. I agree. I'm just going to... Can you believe it? We're already 10 minutes away from the hour. I can't believe that. I'm going to see if I can get some more questions on.
Okay.
Let's have a look. Okay. Oh, there we go. Daisy says the collateral damages were that the good reviews that got deleted too.
Oh, that's not good.
That's the thing, isn't it? I think, when an author does try and do a shortcut and gain a lot of unorganic reviews, I'll put it that way, you are putting yourself at risk from having more taken away than you actually accrued.
Yeah.
And that can be so damaging, can't it? Because let's face it, our reviews are the best selling tools we have, because people buy what other people like. And if you lose those reviews,
again, it just goes back to the people who were working at places like, the LA Review of Books, Washington Review of Books, New York Times Book Review. They're not exactly like you and me. They're not your average person. They got an education, they got a background in this stuff. They have an understanding of like the canon, and they can write a real good and honest review. I mean, yes, of course, they're fallible human beings at the end of the day, like anyone else, but it's still always going to be a better review than going by. It's like anyone can go on Yelp and say they had a bad experience, and the unfortunate thing is they want to do that.
Yeah, you can't stop that, can you?
Have a good one.
Yeah, exactly. One last question is from Scott. He says, how much time and effort should you put into finding a publisher before you pull the trigger on self-publishing? Just looking to your opinion.
It really depends on sort of what your goals are. If your goals are, I want to sell a lot of books, I want to make a lot of money, I want my books to be movies and TV shows and merchandise, I want them translated in other languages and audio editions, all that, then yeah, you have to hold out for self-publishing. It's too tempting when a book doesn't sell to a publisher to then want to go and self-publish it. What happens is when you self-publish, a combination of things. In the best case scenario, the book does phenomenally well. You sell over 50,000 copies, and hopefully at a decent price, and you're able to say to a publisher, oh, trust me, you want to buy my next book, or my new series. You can't exactly sell that same book to publishers because they feel like you've, at that point, reached your audience. The worst case scenario is you've made a time investment, a money investment, in designing a book, editing a book, getting it self-published. And if, God forbid, it doesn't live up to your expectations, then where does that leave you? You, in the eyes of a publisher, you kind of damage your sales track record. And at that point, it's almost impossible to sell you to a publisher until the sales record improves. Because, and I think we did talk about this in the last show.
Yeah.
A bookstore like Barnes & Noble will only order to net whatever an author sold of their last book. So, you could have very high expectations, but if you only sold X number of copies, then the publisher will only print that many and the bookstore will only buy that many. So really only do the self-publishing if it's maybe like a vanity thing, or if maybe you're feeling very confident that you can make a big success in a sea of books. I mean, this for yourself. You got to be a marketing guru to stand out in that space. Not just a good writer. It takes a lot of other things.
It does, and I think a lot of times, authors have to remember, especially if you're just looking at starting. You've had a book idea and you're just thinking about doing it. When you go down the traditionally published route, you have got so much support that you don't get when you are self-published. You've got the support of your agent like Mark. You've got the publishing house that's supporting you as well. You've got all these big people who are there, who have got your back, who can guide you and help you, and they know the business in and out. When you're self-published, you are literally doing everything yourself, and normally it's on a non-existent budget. Whereas when you're traditionally published, you are literally being advertised to the world. It opens a lot more reach for sales and new readers as well.
Yeah, I agree with all of that. A lot of the risk gets mitigated because a publisher pays in advance a set of royalties, and then they have all of that support staff, the marketing, the publicity team. They put a cover design in front of you and they say, yes or no. In the self-publishing realm, you're wearing all those hats, having to go out and hire those people and figure all that out for yourself. So if you want to really be a prolific writer, it's hard to do that when you're having to do all those things.
Yeah, and marketing is literally a full-time job in itself. You know, I mean, I do everything myself, and it's tough. It's tough because if you haven't got the money to pay for other people to do it, you have to literally educate yourself and learn to do it. You do it, you know, you're swapping hats all the time. So I would say definitely, if you're in no rush and you want to be successful, keep querying, because it is a matter of finding the right agent for the right book at the right time. That is all there is to it. And do your research, especially to see, you know, whether there is, I think research is, I keep saying it, but research is so key in every instance, you know, from start to finish. I think, you know, we have to make sure that we research everything. And just a quick FYI to anybody who's a budding author, you should never have to pay a publisher, ever. Publishers are supposed to pay you up front if they believe your book is going to sell. So never pay a publisher, because that is not the way it works. And I've seen so many people getting ripped off and are brokenhearted and just give up because they've been ripped off. So be very careful, research everything. And when you are ready to query, you can go on Query Tracker, which is a very useful tool which you can join for free, and it tells you all the legitimate agents like Mark and publishers. You can select your genre, you can select your country, and you can use it for free. You can pay for the extra stuff if you want to, but you can use it for free. It's a very, very good tool. Mark, as always, this hour has gone so quick. I can't believe it. It's unbelievable. I know, right?
It's fun. I love Q&As. It's like it's like a children's picture book. Everyone loves the pictures. That's the fun part, right? You know.
And you know what? It's lovely to literally get the information from somebody, as I said, as experienced as you, because there's so much information out there. You have to really sift through it to find out what the real truth is, as it were. But thank you so much. You've been absolutely wonderful. We might get some more comments if you don't mind checking back over the next few days.
No problem.
Because not everybody can watch us live, unfortunately, and obviously we don't want everyone missing out. But just so everybody knows, I want to really try and reach as many authors and writers as possible, because this is valuable information. Whoever shares today's video will get put into a draw to win a whole set of ebooks personally from me, as a thank you, because unfortunately, for some reason, a lot of the writing groups won't let me share this stuff, which is, I find very odd, Mark, because we're helping people. But hey ho, it is what it is.
They're missing out.
I know they are missing out, and we're trying to help as many people as we can. So thank you everybody for tuning in. Hopefully we'll be able to do another one soon. And Mark, as always, you are a diamond.
Thank you
for joining us today. So be well, everybody. Stay safe, be careful, and keep researching. See you all later. Bye for now.